Jai Jagannath, Jai Shri Krishna. We are reading Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, and we start from verse 10. Okay, then this is Krishna talking about meditation and yoga. A yogi should constantly practice meditation on the self by living alone in a secluded place, carefully keeping the mind and the consciousness under control, free from expectations and from attachments. That means specifically attachment to material acquisition, as it is nira sira aparigraha. Nirasi aparigraha. Aparigraha means without possessing anything and without the desire to possess anything in a selfish manner. Okay. So why we should live alone in a secluded place? Because the most important thing is to control the mind. And when there is a lot of noise, it's more difficult to control the mind. At least in the preliminary stages, when we are learning to control the mind, we need peace and quiet. Living with other people, especially with many other people, like in ashrams and matas and like that, is not recommended in the Shastra. It's not recommended by Krishna. 11. Having established his residence in a pure place, he should settle firmly on a seat that is neither too high nor too low, with layers of cloth, deer skin, and kusha grass. Okay. Now, of course, there must be a clean and pure place because sattva is important. We don't want to be disturbed by the energy of tamas. That settle firmly on a seat, it is the seat is asanam. Asanam means a sitting place, but also body position. And as we know from the nomenclature, the dictionary of yoga, so the asana is important. Now Krishna here is starting by saying we need to do yama niyama, which is cleanliness, detachment, purity, and all the general norms and principles for a sattvic life. Then Krishna starts to speak about the asana. So the asana is a sitting place, but also a body position. So if one can sit in a padmasana or sukhasana, is okay. If there is any physical problem, also shavasana is okay. Shavasana means the position of the dead body. So you just lay down and, keep the control of the body. It must be a firm position. So if you can keep your body still, firmly seated in any position, that's what we need to do, because we should not be disturbed by the body. If we try to get ourselves in weird asanas, all contorted and difficult to hold, that's not a firm position. We have to settle in a firm position that we can keep controlling the body without being disturbed by the body. Okay, not too high and not too low. This means that it has to be balanced. We need to go for the golden middle. With layers of cloth, deerskin, and cushion grass. Okay, why? Okay, the cloth we can understand. Why the deerskin and the cushion grass? It is to discourage the insects, and snakes, the creepy crawlies. We don't need to use deerskin if we are meditating in our house when we don't have insects or snakes crawling around, so we can do without the deerskin. The kusha grass is quite difficult to get. We can just avoid the kusha grass. Kusha grass is something clean, something pure, fresh, that is keeping us comfortable. So we don't have a kusha grass, we can just find some proper cloth or a mat or whatever is useful for that. Okay, then we go on. And the verse 12. Sitting there, he should carefully focus his mind on the practice required for the control of his consciousness, engaging in yoga for the purification of the self. Okay, so the point of yoga is to meditate and control the consciousness and purify the self. Means purify from what? From material contaminations, conditionings, from the ahankara and mamato, from the material identification. So yoga is not a physical exercise to get fit. It's not a fitness practice. Actually, it's the opposite. Yoga is sadhana. Yoga sadhana is supposed to detach ourselves from our physical body, not to focus on the physical body as our identification. Then we have verse 13. Keeping the body, the head and the neck in a straight line, one should remain still, focusing one's attention in front of one nose without looking in any other direction. Okay, as we were saying before about the asana or body position, the body, the head and the neck should be straight. This means if we can do that in Padmasana or Sukhasana, okay. If we cannot, we need to lay down. We need to have any position where we can stay still for a long time, and the torso, the body means the general torso. The head and the neck should be straight. Why? Because we want the chakras to be aligned correctly. The chakras are the power sockets of our prana, the prana maya kosha. The chakras are connecting our prana maya kosha, our Vijnana Maya Kosha with the Annamaya Kosha, with the physical body made of solid matter. So if we keep the spine straight, starting from the Muladhara chakra up to the head, the Sahasrara chakra, the crown chakra, from the root to the crown, that should be straight and the energy should circulate freely. So we don't need to focus on any particular chakra because naturally the consciousness will clean all the chakras. It's all a matter of consciousness. When we focus our attention, our consciousness, and we direct our consciousness to the real self, to the Anandamaya Kosha, our actual identity, the Atman, this naturally purifies our consciousness, our identity, our sense of identity, our identification becomes purified. But for this, we need to help the prana to circulate in the best possible way. This is also the reason why traditionally the clothing in the Sanatana Dharma tradition is very free flowing. It's not constricting. So the only thing might be a belt, but the belt is not supposed to be very tight. So the belt is just meant to support the folds of the cloth, especially in the lower part of the body. But otherwise, there is no constraint on the body. So the energy can circulate as freely as possible. We know that many yogis actually don't wear anything. Now, we don't need to get to that point because, maybe sometimes it's cold, the weather is cold, or it's not socially acceptable. But we should allow our prana, our energy to flow as freely as possible. So, why we should focus our attention in front of one nose? That doesn't mean that we have to, strain our eyes to see the tip of our nose. No, it means we should look straight forward. We should not, move our head here and there, move our eyes here and there to observe the things. We need to take out all the distractions and just concentrate on the meditation, on our consciousness, our real self, our real identity. So usually when we meditate, we can sit in the puja room and we can fix our eyes in front of us to the vigraha of God, the deity, the sacred image of God. Or if we don't have a puja room, we can just have a lamp, a candle, or anything. That technique is called tratak. It means it's a part of dharana. So we learn to keep our attention on a particular object, sacred object, positive object that is just in front of us. We can focus on a yantra, we can focus on a mandala, we can focus on the vigraha of God, we can focus on Krishna, on Vishnu, Salagram, whatever we want to focus on. We have to keep our eyes fixed. We cannot look here and there. Okay, so without looking in any other direction. Next verse is 14. Conquering fear and practicing contentment, firmly established in the brahmacharya, controlling, engaging the mind, one should remain still, connecting the consciousness with me and contemplating me as the goal. Okay. Prashantatma means satisfied, without hankering. Like Krishna says, nasochati na kankshati. Without fear and without worries, without aspirations, just very peaceful, prashant. Bhi. Bhi means fear. We should not be afraid of anything. We should be satisfied with whatever we have, with ourselves and everything. And we should not be afraid of anything. Okay. So, conquering fear and practicing contentment, firmly established in the brahmacharya. Okay, so we have this brahmacharya vrate, the vow of brahmacharya. This is very important because the toxic influence of Abrahamic ideologies have confused lots of people regarding the meaning of brahmacharya. Usually brahmacharya is translated as celibacy, which basically simply means you're not married. Celibate means one who's not married. However, this is not the meaning of brahmacharya. So, Brahma Achara means behaving as Brahman. So, Brahman is not concerned with repression and denial. Brahman doesn't identify with the body. So, brahmacharya means not identifying with the body, not identifying ourselves and not identifying other people with the body. It means we behave as Brahman towards ourselves and towards all the other manifestations that come from Brahman and that are, parts of Brahman. So, the people who try to show that they're very renounced, they're very austere, they're very self-controlled in regard to material body pleasures, we have to see, in fact, if they are on the level of Brahman or if they are just on the level of repression. Like Krishna in Gita says that there is no point in refraining, abstaining from engaging the senses in the sense objects if we keep thinking of the sense objects. Someone who is abstaining from action but he is actually contemplating material attachment, material desires in his mind is a hypocrite and is going to fail. In fact, it is better to engage the senses in a regulated way, regulated manner, in a healthy, sattvic manner, and keeping always the very clear consciousness that we are not the body. Now, we have a body. We have a material body, so the body needs to eat, needs to go to the bathroom, needs to sleep, so many things that the body needs to do. We should not abstain from these activities of the body because the senses must be engaged in the sense objects. Otherwise, we cannot survive. Unless we have developed a siddha deha, means a spiritual body that doesn't need the material body. Otherwise, we, instead of going into sattva, we go into tamas. And we become even more conditioned, even more attached, even more identified, which is not a good idea. So, Brahmacharya can be applied by anyone, even by married people. If a married person treats himself and all the other members of the family as Brahman, as Atman, Jivatman, as servants of God, parts of God, that is called Brahmacharya. Okay. Then controlling and engaging the mind. Now, samyamya. Samyamya means controlling, conquering, and also engaging. Because the mind needs to be engaged. We cannot just disconnect the mind, because the mind will continue to work. The only thing that will stop is our consciousness about the work of the mind. When we are not conscious, when we are not in the waking state of Jagran, it's not that the mind is not working anymore. The mind is dreaming, swapna. So, when the mind is dreaming, that we can do either by sleeping or by staying awake. But we are not aware consciously of what is happening, because the subconscious is taking up control. So during the dreaming state, whether we are asleep or we are not asleep, we are not aware of what our mind is doing. This is not controlling the mind. This is being unaware, which is what most people do. So when someone is not aware of what the mind is doing, they find themselves, doing weird things, and they don't know why. And they wonder, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why, I made that mistake? Why I didn't do what I was supposed to do? This is not because the mind was controlled. Because the mind was out of control and was doing things by its own will and dragging our body, around to do whatever the subconscious was trying to do. So, when we want to control the mind, we have to engage the mind. We have to engage the consciousness in a deliberate way. We have to focus our mind, focus our consciousness on a very clear level, on a very clear awareness. Now, the best awareness is our real identity as Atman. Of course, as Atman, we are part of Brahman, we are part of Bhagavan, we are part of Bhagavan. So, we can meditate on the Paramatma, we can keep our awareness and consciousness on the Paramatma or on Bhagavan, but we have to make sure it's not a subconscious projection of our own mind. Because our own mind can dress up, disguise itself as God. So we have some projection of God that we think is God, but it's not, it's our mind. So we need to be very careful to constantly verify if our view, our vision, our perception is actually true and genuine, or it is just a projection of our mind. So, connecting the consciousness with me, Machitta, being conscious of me. Now, we have seen that Krishna, during Bhagavad Gita, sometimes uses the first pronoun, sometimes the third pronoun. When he speaks about God, sometimes he speaks saying I am, and sometimes God is, which in Krishna is the same thing. This is Krishna consciousness, the consciousness of Krishna that we have to attach ourselves to. Okay, so contemplating me as the goal, contemplating God as the goal. Mat para means putting God as the supreme goal of our life. Putting God consciousness as the supreme. Para. Okay. Now we have 15. Practicing or engaged. Yunjan. Yunjan means to engage, to practice, to unite. Yunjan. In this way, Sadatmanam, always on the Atman. The Atman is the purpose of yoga. Again, someone who's practicing yoga or even teaching yoga without ever meditating on the Atman is just is just not practicing yoga. Okay, means you're back. The yogi that has control, yogi who has control of the mind, attains the peace of the supreme nirvana, abiding in me. Nirvana paramam. So Krishna is using the word nirvana. Some ignorant people think that nirvana is just for impersonalists and Buddhists and Mayavadis and whatever. Now, it's interesting to go and see how many times Krishna is mentioning nirvana in Bhagavad Gita. So what is nirvana? Nirvana means not agitated by wind. The vata is the air, which is also vayu and prana vayu. And it is connected with the movements of the mind. Now, when we pacify, we calm the movements of the mind, like Patanjali is saying when defining what yoga is. When there is peace in our mind and we can see clearly the Atman, that is nirvana. Just like a lamp without wind can burn more brightly. So if we have a candle and there is a lot of wind, the candle cannot give so much light. When the wind and the air is stopping, then the candle is radiating more light. Now, the Buddhist interpretation of nirvana is that you take away the air from the light. So, for example, you take a glass cup and you put it over the lamp, so the lamp doesn't have any more air, so it goes out. This is not the nirvana that Krishna is talking about. That is the difference, main difference between the yoga and the Buddhist conclusions, the doctrine that is propagated by Buddhist philosophers. So, engages the mind, attains the peace of the supreme nirvana, abiding in me. So, Krishna is not different from consciousness, from the spiritual consciousness. Brahman is consciousness. Paramatma is consciousness. Bhagavan is consciousness. when we meditate on Krishna, Radha Krishna, we shouldn't think that Krishna is a material person, limited by time, space, and individuality. Krishna is consciousness, pure consciousness. So when we enter the consciousness of Krishna, we enter Krishna. So we have to understand that. Otherwise, we remain on the level of the Prakrita Sahajya, the simplistic, sentimental people, materialists. Okay, 16. Arjuna, yoga is not possible for one who eats too much or does not eat at all, or for one who sleeps too much or does not sleep at all. Okay, this verse is also interesting because it shows that yoga has nothing to do with that idea of great austerities that sometimes we think that yogis are doing. Like, for example, we have in the Puranas the stories of great austerities, performed even by, especially by great asuras, such as Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, and the like. So, we go and see Hiranyakashipu. He decided that he wanted to kill Vishnu, so he went and did some very great austerities, very great tapas. Now, yoga has nothing to do with tapas. The only tapas we have to engage in yoga is the concentration of the mind. We don't need to do great austerities like not eating, not sleeping, or standing, for 10 years without sitting down, or keeping one hand up for 20 years until the hand becomes shrunken and totally useless. No, God gave us, the plan, God's plan is for us to have two hands, not one half and a half. So, that's not yoga. Okay. And we go 17. For one who consciously controls his food intake, who is controlled in moving around, who makes controlled efforts in working, means performing one's duties, and is regulated in sleeping or dreaming and keeping vigil, in staying awake, yoga becomes the destroyer of sufferings. It's all about controlling one's mind. If we control our mind, we can also control our senses, and we can also control our bodies. So the extreme evidence of this control, when some yogis actually learn how to control the bodily functions, including the heartbeat. But, it's in Kali Yuga it's not so easy. So we just try to be conscious and control, keeping an eye on what we are doing, without allowing the mind to do everything it wants. And we have 18. When the consciousness is trained to focus firmly on the Atman, free from the desire for the various types of sense pleasures, it is said to be properly engaged in yoga. So, we focus on the Atman, and we are free from ahankar and mamatva. When we are free from mamatva, we don't have desire for sense engagement beyond what is actually required for the good maintenance of our body. So, of course, Krishna says we need to eat, we need to sleep, we need to regulate our activities, which means engaging the senses in the sense objects. But that is only to keep the body and mind working properly. We should not think all the time about desire, so sense, pleasure, gratification. Okay, so this is the actual meaning of yoga. We are never going to overstate, cannot be overstated. 619. Just like the flame of a lamp remains stable when there is no wind, the controlled mind of the yogi does not flicker. This is the comparison given for one who is engaged in the meditation on the Atman. So we have already established that, mentioned that earlier. So the first verse of the first, the beginning of the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is a Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations in the mind. Tada drashtu swarupe avastanam. At that point, the seer, so the Atman, is established in his real form, swarup. So that means no bodily identification. Okay, no ahankara, no mamatra. Okay. If any need, you just stop me, huh? I'm just going on.
Sure.
Okay. 20. When the consciousness becomes quiet because of the cessation of the wavering by engagement in yoga, then one becomes satisfied in the self by contemplating the Atman within the self. So, when we are able to control and engage our mind properly, without allowing the mind to run here and there, it's like we are riding a very well-trained horse. So the horse will go where we want the horse to go. It's not that the horse sees anything interesting and just takes off and we are forced to go with it. The mind is a very good servant but a terrible master. So we need to control the mind and engage it constantly. So the consciousness becomes quiet. Also, especially in the early stages, also due to the fact that we are living alone in an isolated place, in a solitary place, which is a very good idea. So, we become satisfied in the self by contemplating the Atman within the self. This is because the Atman is Satchidananda. So we find the real happiness. Everybody's running around like crazy, trying to find happiness. And they just have to calm down, and stop searching outside. We just have to look inside. Our real nature is already happiness. We don't need anything else to be happy. And that happiness, we're never going to lose it because it's us. We are happiness. And this completely changes the perception of reality. We are happiness. So what more do we want? The only thing that we want is the instruments to render our service to the complete whole, in the sense that we are ananda, we are happiness, because we are part of the complete whole of happiness. The totality of happiness. So the only thing that we desire is to serve the totality of happiness. And this is why we work. This is why we take action at different levels, performing our duties, our professional duties, our family duties, our social duties, and our eternal Sanatana duties. In this way, we can understand the meaning of the word dharma. Dharma means that which sustains. So dharma is what sustains ourselves, our real nature, of parts of the absolute, and sustains the family, sustains society, and sustains universal community, and ultimately sustains reality itself. And here we go into what, the field of what modern, contemporary physicists are exploring. And it's amazing because we are part of this dharma of sustaining reality. Now, the Karma Kanda is doing that by establishing a relationship of cooperation with the devas. But this is not rituals in themselves. It's a meditation that is supported by the rituals. Through the Purva Mimamsa, the Karma Kanda, we are actually supporting reality. Consciousness is everything. Consciousness is Brahman, consciousness is Atman, consciousness is Bhagavad. So this is the key. Everything is consciousness. Atman is consciousness, Brahman is consciousness, Paramatma is consciousness, Bhagavan is consciousness. We are not limited by material identification. We should just give up material identification. See, the material nature as a manifestation of Brahman that is meant to teach us and give us the opportunity to evolve, to manifest our complete potential. As Jivas, we are also Shakti. Now, in these days, I'm studying the Pancharatra because my group of Italian students that is growing have expressed interest for the Pancharatra, not the Panchatantra. We shouldn't confuse the Pancharatra with the Panchatantra because they're two different things. Pancharatras are a collection of agamas or tantras that focus on the worship of God. And the Panchatantra is a series of stories like parables, metaphors, fables, if we want, that are meant to give general instructions on material life. And there are some, nice stories, funny stories that are the ancestors of the tradition of fables, like Aesop's fables and everything in Greece and then in the West. Anyway, so Panchatantra is explaining how to focus our consciousness on God, through the rituals, through the upasana, the worship. So this is the point. We should understand that all forms of dharma, from the temporary dharma of professional or family engagement in the varnashram dharma, varnashram system, to the sanatana dharma that is beyond the material position. They're all forms of consciousness that support reality. So they support the individual and the group and the complete existence, the sum total of existence. Okay, so let's see where we are on verse 21. In this absolute state of happiness that can be grasped by the intellect, but is beyond the reach of the senses, one certainly knows that he is firmly situated in the truth, and does not move away. So, that's what we were saying before, that we are Ananda. God is Ananda. Atman is Ananda. Brahman is Ananda. Paramatma is Ananda. Bhagavan is Ananda. There is no limit to that happiness. It's not conditioned by time, space, individuality, or any other condition. Okay, this happiness cannot be understood, explained logically, but we can perceive it. We can definitely perceive it. We can be aware of it. And this is God consciousness. Okay, so this, we know that we are firmly situated in the truth and does not move away. This is also a very interesting test to see if we really are connected to God, or we are meditating and serving some mental form invented and projected in a fantasy. When we are in touch with God, we are happy. And we are improving. We are developing our best potential. When we are worshipping something that is not God, we are not happy. So we are trying to control others, we're trying to get some better identification, attachment, possession, more ahankar, more mamatva. That means that we are not in contact with God. We are not in contact with the Atman. And what we are worshipping is actually some kind of ghost created by our mind or someone else's mind. Doesn't matter. It's not God. Okay. Now, let's see. 22. One who has obtained this position does not take into consideration, or feel the need for, any further acquisition. And once established there, it does not become shaken even by severe sufferings. That doesn't mean that someone who is in contact with God will never have joys or sorrows, because these joys or sorrows are normal in the material world. As long as we have a body and and a material mind, material body, we are going to have sukha dukkha. That's normal. But we are not confused. We are not shaken. Because we know that these sufferings are only concerning the body and the mind. Because we are not identifying with the body and the mind, it doesn't concern us. So we don't make it worse by trying to scratch the itch. We just, if we can apply some medicine, and we have the patience to let it heal. Okay, so we are now, okay, 23. This should be known as the absorption in yoga that liberates from all contact with suffering. That is undoubtedly the yoga system that must be practiced.
Again, your voice is breaking.
Oh, I think that's because of the connection, internet connection.
Okay, okay.
Because it doesn't break with me. It means it's not
Okay,
getting
maybe I
there.
might.
No, anyway, okay,
I
I think
can.
we can stop here. Next time we can start from 23. Because
Okay.
we already went from beyond the hour. So you have any question? Any specification? No.
Uh, yeah, when we were talking about interchangeably, uh, as you already mentioned that like Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagwan,
Yeah.
they are consciousness only. So, uh, in that sense, the discussion which is going on here is from the outset of it, it just looks like it is discussing about Brahman because it doesn't
Yeah.
talk about some reality as in the it is talking in terms of self only in at most of the places,
Yeah.
right? So in that sense, can we say that this Dhyan Yoga is mainly this yoga chapter, Dhyan Yoga is only focused on the Nirakar aspect of it, as in the self, the Atman part of it?
Ah, Nirakara. You mean Nirakara or Nirguna?
Nirakar.
Nirakara.
Because when we
Well,
talk about self,
yeah.
we talk about something which is beyond this body, right? So
Yeah, beyond this body, but not disconnected from this body. Because as long as we have a body, it is our duty to use this body in the service of God. So, Rishikesha Rishikena Savanam Bhakti Ruchate. It means Nirakar means not doing anything, right? Now, uh,
eh, yeah, like something which is beyond contemplation and
yeah, but
uh,
still, we engage the senses in the sense objects. Like Krishna says, guna guneshu vartante. The gunas must be engaged in the gunas. Material nature, the matter, should be engaged in matter. So we need to keep the consciousness that we are Nirakar, but at the same time, we are engaging everything, including material nature, material elements, us as material parts of material nature. Our body and mind is part of material nature. So we should engage that in the dharma that goes from the swadharma to the sanatana dharma. I don't know if it is clear, if it helps.
uh
Not
yeah,
really.
this we understand on this part, but like here Krishna didn't explicitly mention about meditating on form, right? I think at the end of the
No,
chapter
no,
he
no,
mentions on
no.
the till now he's talking about self only. I think
Yeah,
in the
but
end
the
of the chapter
self,
he'll
just
talk
like,
about.
yeah, I mean, the self is Satchitananda Vigraha. Just like God is Satchitananda Vigraha. Now, our self, our part of the Satchitananda, actually has the Vigraha as a seed. This seed will develop into the Siddha Deha. So still the Siddha Deha is Vigraha and it's part of, it's the real nature of our Atma. I don't know if it's clear, because
Yeah, this.
like Krishna is saying, Janma Karma Chamedivyam Evam Yovetti Tattvaha. Those who actually understand, really understand the tattva of Krishna, the vision, Krishna's Janma and Karma. Our Janma and Karma can also be seen as divine when we are talking about the Siddha Deha, when we are talking about the consciousness. the consciousness of the Siddha Deha is already there in the Atman, even when it's not developed. So when we focus our consciousness, our awareness on the self, the innermost and most powerful manifestation of the self is our Siddha Deha, which it's us. Just like the body of Krishna is not different from Krishna. So our Siddha Deha, we are the Siddha Deha. It's not that we have a Siddha Deha. We are the Siddha Deha. So when we focus on the self, when we meditate on the self, on the Atman, the Siddha Deha is a natural development of the Atman. It's not subject to time and play and play in time and space, because it's always been there, but it's not manifested. So by focusing our meditation on the Atman, we are actually nurturing our Atman as Siddha Deha, and it will blossom as a Siddha Deha. Like watering the Bhakti Lata. What is the Bhakti Lata? Is the awareness of the Siddha Deha. The Siddha Deha is our rasa with God, our connection with God, our identity with God. You see, how it works. It's not very
Yeah.
simple.
Mhm. Yeah, it again, comes to that same conclusion that understand, realizing is a different thing and
Exactly.
speaking is different.
exactly. Theory must be there, but then we need to actually develop in practice. We need to realize it. This is why Krishna is saying it's beyond the intellect. This happiness is beyond the intellect. We need to
Mhm.
perceive it directly. We need to realize it. And that's the purpose of jnana and vairagya. That's the purpose of yoga. By yoga, through the yoga sadhana, you actually study swadhyaya and Ishvara Pranidhana. These are the two, the last two points of the Yama and Niyama requirements. So, by Swadhyaya and Ishvara Pranidhana, we actually come to realize directly this knowledge. It's not only theoretical, it becomes practical, and that we perceive it directly. That is called prakash, darshana. This is what the rishis are. One doesn't become a rishi because he has a long beard and a long hair, or some rishi dress. Now one becomes a rishi when you actually see, you perceive directly, you have the direct darshan of the tattva. And this we can all do that. Just we need to do some good sadhana, good study. Without theory, we cannot get to the practice. We don't know what we are supposed to practice. You understand? But the Gita
Yeah.
is sufficient. So if we really study the Gita, if we just look at the pages and turn the pages, it's not going to have much effect. We really need to
Mhm.
actually understand what we're reading. We are doing that. We are doing that. Gradually. Is that a
Yeah.
little more understandable?
Yeah. Yeah.
At least a little bit. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Good. I know it's you know, Gita is going on, and while it goes on, the concepts become deeper and deeper. Last week I just completed the study of Gita, the last verses of the last chapter with my Italian study group of Gita that has been going on for months. And they were totally confused because they started with the name of the group that they gave themselves was Advaita. So in the end, the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that, Advaita is bhakti. And they were completely confused. But, okay, they will have to learn. It's, this is the greatest knowledge, the greatest secret. It's Raja Guhya, it's Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Pavitram Idam Uttamam. Pratyaksha Dharmyam. Pratyaksha means prakash, right? Pratyaksha means direct perception. We were just saying that. You cannot do it intellectually, you need to perceive it. But first you need the theory, because if you don't have the theory, you have no idea of what to do in practice. It's like if you don't know a recipe, you're never going to be able to cook it. Knowing the recipe theoretically doesn't, do anything for your hunger. You're hungry, just knowing a recipe is not going to help much. But if you're hungry, if you don't even know what to do to cook, you are not in a better position. Don't just throw, whatever comes your way in the pot and hope for the best. Fake it till you make it. It's not working that way. Jnana and Vairagya are required, especially in the beginning. If when you attain the level of realization, then you can move on beyond the sadhana bhakti, the vaidhi bhakti. But before that, you just go to the tamas of prakrita sajya, materialistic, simplistic, sentimental fantasy, which is not a good idea. Anyway, step by step, we are, I think we're going pretty well.
Yeah.
Write down, if you have questions, if you have doubts, please write them down so that we can elaborate. We can see, I will be able to see how better to explain
Mhm.
because I need some,
Okay.
some reference to the position we are in.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you
Sure.
ask questions, that will be very useful. Okay. Okay
Okay.
then. I think for today we did our part, our study. I'll let you go for dinner. And
Okay.
thanks for your participation. It's always extremely valued. And
Thank you for your time
Jai, Jai Shri
and
Krishna.
patience.
Jai, Jai Radhe. Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radha. Radha. Radha.